All right, well, welcome back to Music Talk. I'm Dave. That's
I'm
Mike.
Mike.
And tonight we got a couple special guests. We got Heiko and David. And the reason why we got special guests today is I'm not going to try to speak for Mike, but I know personally this album we're getting ready to review, I don't know much about the band. So we figured we better bring in some specialists. Mike's probably played a couple of their songs back in the day on in his band.
No.
Well, the album we're going to check out is the latest Depeche Mode. It's been out a few weeks now, maybe a month, and it looks like this.
It looks like a couple of wisdom teeth.
It would have like maybe that, right? but it's angels. It's angels. It's flowers, man.
That one's got a
called Memento Mori, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's French. It's a French name.
Is
Moray. Yeah, Moray.
But then on the inside, you got this cool cover, which one thing I will tell you on the inside here, if you look closely, see if I can do this, the picture goes all the way through to the back. I think that's pretty cool. So if I rip this, I still got the picture. So that was pretty neat. That's pretty good money production there. You got a little picture of them. You got, would you say that's Fletch right there? No. I mean, it's
can't really see.
I mean, I'm not trying to be.
Is that funny. A skull? Is that a skull? Is that what you? Is that?
That's a skull.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, I mean, Memento Mori stands for object as serving as a warning or a reminder of death, right? So this whole album's got some sort of death about it anyway. And I mean, you know, we did lose Fletch, right? How long has that been?
Wasn't that
about a year?
Wasn't that a Chevy Chase movie, Fletch?
Yeah, Fletch. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm all.
So then the back, about that long. Back, you still have the same table, but this picture here, which we'll talk about later, which I really thought was the coolest picture on the cover because of the shadows.
Yeah.
So, and we'll talk about that later when Heiko shares his screen. So, hold on, let me finish it up here. There's the CD. You got the Depeche Mode symbol there. Then you got this cool book. So this, you got the angel wings there, and you go through a couple pictures of Martin and Dave. They got the mirror thing going, which I thought was pretty cool. Same thing on the front. Kind of reminds you of a mirror there. To me, anyway. Of course, I'm weird. So then you got Dave and Martin there, which I'm thinking this is Martin, correct?
Yes.
Yep. And that's Dave. Okay.
Yep.
Dave's the name of the night. I like the black and white because you can read it when you're old like me. I have a hard time reading. So black and white, I do like a lot. Here's the rest of the words. You got Dave and Martin again, and all the credits of everyone on here, and then the album name. So we'll go ahead and talk a little bit of history, which is why we brought you guys in, because I really don't know much about the history of the band. I kind of broke down the record and who did what on this record mostly, but you know, I'll let you guys talk a little bit about the past and how y'all think this album stacks up with what their other stuff was.
All right, I got a couple things written down just so I can remember everything. I was introduced to the band probably early 80s, MTV days. And then I lived in Germany, and they're one of the biggest bands in Germany, and have been since probably the early 80s. My very first concert was Depeche Mode in '87.
Wow.
It was the Music for the Masses tour, and of course I've enjoyed them ever since. That was one of my favorite albums. And so like early on, they formed in 1980. They were 4-piece with the original members Martin and Dave, Martin L. Gore, Dave Gahan, and Andy Fletcher, who just passed last year. And then they had, of course, I should have written it down.
Well, they actually had a couple of other guys, right?
Yeah, he ended up not wanting to be in a band and then started 2 new bands after that.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Vince?
Vince Clarke.
Yeah.
So then Vince Clarke decided to leave, and he was the primary songwriter at the time. And so he left, started a band called Yazoo, also known as Yaz,
Mhm.
and then got bored with that.
I remember.
And
I
then,
remember.
Yeah.
with Allison Moyer.
Right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then he started a band called Erasure, another two-piece. I guess he didn't want four, he only wanted two people in the band. And so after, he's still going with Erasure.
Hmm.
You know, they've lasted a long time.
So they're still
So
around.
then what? Yeah, they are.
Okay.
And then after Vince left, Alan Wilder came in, who was a classic pianist, and he kind of stepped in as the kind of filler of all things. He did write some, but most of the writing then went to Martin Gore, and he started writing and getting better from that. Uh, Alan eventually left when all of them were kind of on drugs and alcohol and had so many issues. And it was I don't remember exactly. I think it was like 2004 is when he left. And then they were a three-piece. It was Andy, Martin, and Dave until Andy passed last year. And Martin continued to write most of the songs until probably about 4 albums ago. And then Dave started writing with his team. And it's kind of like a Ringo thing where he was allowed to have one song or two songs per album to start off with. And I think Martin is now more comfortable with his writing, and actually even gave him compliments on his writing off of this album.
Yeah.
Well, usually what happens in a scenario like that, and funny you mentioned Ringo, because George was the other hidden treasure that the Beatles, John and Paul just kind of kept overlooking him, and he wound up writing the Beatles' biggest selling record ever, and that was Something.
Yeah.
And it's just to me, I'm just amazed at these songwriting teams that are working with other people that wind up writing songs bigger than what they did. It's like, okay, see, told you. But yeah, it's funny to follow people that you really admire and then realize that these other guys too in the band that are very much a part of the band are putting as much, if not more, into production end and the writing end of it than the stars of the band. The ones that stick out as the main characters. And it's nice when they do get recognized for what they're doing.
Right. So when did you start listening to them, David?
So I remember the first album I bought of theirs was and if any youngins are listening, yes, album vinyl, right from the record store. Was Some Great Reward, which was released in 1984. And and this is, this may be up for debate, but I really felt like that album was the one that really catapulted them to American fame. It had the hit single "People Are People" on it, and I really feel like that was. In fact, I remember the time I grew up in Indiana, and I remember being in Kentucky wearing a Depeche Mode T-shirt, and this guy walked by me, and he says, "I know them. People are people, right?" And I was like, "Yes, yes." So more people, they went from kind of semi-obscurity in the U.S., definitely more popular in the UK and Germany, as Heiko mentioned, up to that point. And that really kind of catapulted them into more American,
worldwide.
Worldwide. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, so I started with that album and really just got hooked. I mean, and for me, it was just more than just the songs. It was, their look. One thing interesting, Martin at that time was very kind of a little bit androgynous. I know he wore the leather mini skirts, and I remember that seeing that, and even some like now that would be, we would say, kind of BDSM type type
Yeah.
Oh,
uh
mhm.
stuff, on his chest and everything. And I bring that up because, I think that was part of that era of that they called it gender bending then. It was like that uh androgynous period where you like Boy George O'Dowd, P Burns from Dead or Alive,
Mhm.
and then so Martin Gore kind of dabbled in that for a while. And really, so what that said to me was, here's a band who's not afraid of self-expression and
Right.
not afraid to be themselves.
Yep.
And so, especially, being an angsty teenager, an angsty Generation X uh angsty teenager in the 80s, their lyrics really spoke to me. They had the upbeat ones, like, people are people, had a serious message, but it was, the tone was a little more upbeat. Their previous album, one of their previous albums, Speak and Spell, I think, and Heiko, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, I think that probably had Everything Counts on it, and kind of the more really high tempoed, fast tempoed songs on it. So they've been a good mix of that, and then of course then they morphed more into the a little bit darker, more contemplative type lyrics. I have not seen them in concert ever, but this year the bucket list will that item will be crossed off when I see them in Portland in November. So looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And sorry, I haven't, can't see the band as they were, when all four of them, or even with Fletch, but I just knew I had to get tickets because it just kind of a sense of urgency,
Yeah.
And anyway, so yeah, I've just, like Heiko, I've just been a fan since the well, for me, the mid 80s. And even all their drama, with Dave. Um, by the way, I just want to say, as a little side note, I made a note of this. Heiko referred to him as Dave Gone. I was this year old when I found out that that's how you pronounce his name. I always thought it was Gahan. So anyway, I just want to throw that in there.
We were
Most
actually-
people do, yeah.
Yeah, we were
Yeah, most
talking
people
about
do.
that
Okay.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's Dave Gone, right? That's
Yeah.
how it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, he had a very serious drug drug and alcohol problem, to the point of where he attempted to take his life.
Yeah,
in
he
a-
overdosed.
Yeah, he did overdose. Yeah, in an LA hotel, right? I think it was.
And I think he died for like 2 minutes.
Yes. He said he felt himself leave his body, I believe, or he was looking down on it or something.
Yeah.
And then next thing he knew, he was in handcuffs because he. But yeah.
'Cause
But anyway,
they came looking for Mike and they found him, I guess.
Where's that son of a bitch throwing in beer bottles at
So when you were talking about, I guess the androgynous part, I know they were big Bowie fans. 'Cause
Yes.
I've heard them talk about that in older interviews. So I've, a lot back then seemed to be that way, like with Bowie, even Mick Jagger at some points, but that seemed to
Freddie
be,
Mercury,
that's how
yeah.
it was over in Europe a lot.
Well, you had this genre too going on at the same time. It's like Depeche Mode and Annie Lennox,
Eurythmics.
the
Eurythmics,
Eurythmics and all at
Yeah.
that time, and there were some very, very similar sounds, other than the fact that she was a female singing. But if you listen to the background music, a lot of it to me sound like, well, what Depeche Mode's doing,
Yeah, the synth type of music.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Sweet Dreams. I mean, it's like, there you go.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, I've been listening to this stuff on the radio for a long time, but I never bothered to really stop and really check it out. because it really, I mean, honestly, it wasn't in my wheelhouse of the music that I listened to.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the same way because I mean I've heard the songs. And then, like I said, I didn't even know half the songs that were them I was listening to that was actually them because I'm like, yeah, I know that song. Oh, I know this song. So I've
Mhm.
heard them. I just never really dived in too well, as as far as really got into them. But I do want to say a couple things, and you guys can correct me for sure. I know you can. But I want to say that they were kind of like the beginning of the new wave, right? Like the
They were pretty
electronic,
early on. Yeah.
were they
Yeah.
like part of the founders of that style?
The techno rock, yeah, or
Yeah, it's pretty
I don't know if
close.
you can put, I don't know if you can put rock on it so much as just techno
No.
music,
I- Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they called it electronic rock at one time, but I always called it like new wave.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I called it too.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think they were part of that. And an early part because, I think well, I mean, I know they were formed in '79, I believe, with Vince Clark when Vince Clark was there. And then, uh, he left and then Dave, came into the band. But, so yeah, I would definitely say, yeah, definitely they were the beginnings of the new wave trend that was
Yeah.
especially that was coming out of England at that time.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
like another big one that's the Human League, and they were
Right.
very, very androgynous looking also.
Yes, Phil
Right,
Oakley. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, at that
Yeah,
time,
definitely.
you had quite a few, right? Right. I mean, even like Thompson Twins, bands like that,
Yeah.
right? They were all
Mhm.
coming around
Yeah.
about the same time.
OMD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yes.
So
I still
One
listen
thing.
to all of those bands, by the way.
Yes, me too. Me too.
Flock of
Uh,
seagulls.
Yeah,
yeah, I think they came actually later, the Flock of Seagulls.
a
Yeah,
little bit.
well, in the 80s,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
now Depeche Mode was actually named after a magazine. Is that correct? Because I read that it was named out, there was a magazine called Depeche Mode that stood for fashion news or what's hot fashion.
I think they might have pulled it from something like that, something
Mhm.
related to fashion. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's specific a magazine, but that's probably correct.
Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I thought I found that in some article somewhere where they had kind of named it after a magazine that was like a fashion magazine. So
I heard that back in the '80s when it was discussed how they got their name, I heard that loosely translated it's into French, it's something like fast fashion, something like that. So I'm not sure, but yeah, I remember something like that. It's been
and
a
we
while
just
since
had
I
a
looked into
cover
that.
band that came around, right? Like
Yeah,
that was
called Fast Fashion
Fast Fashion.
from Tampa. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So if you see a band coming around called Fast Fashion, it's a Depeche Mode cover band.
Okay.
I still think it's odd that cover bands are playing at the same time as the real bands, but whatever. So what I'll do real quick is we'll go break down each song, talk about each one. I don't know how much y'all broke down this record, but my knowledge of Depeche Mode is this record.
Yes.
This is the
Okay.
only thing
Yeah.
that I've ever really
Yeah.
dove into, So basically it's them two, Dave and Martin.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of other guys that fill in, which helped write with Dave a lot. One of them is Christian Eigner, and then the other one is Peter Gordino or Dino. I'm not sure how. I'm
Yes.
terrible with these pronunciations.
yeah. I think
No, it's
Peter is
okay.
I think
Well,
Peter is the keyboardist that
Okay.
tours with them.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
they're easier names to
Mhm.
pronounce than Riverside's.
Yeah, Riverside. I just gave up. I wasn't even going to try to pronounce those. So then that was produced by James Ford, right? So James also plays everything on this record. I mean, he's doing the bass, the drums, the guitar, the pedal steel, piano. So he's all over this record, and as all producers usually are, right? So
Oh yeah.
and James Ford, I went and looked him up a little bit, and he's done some stuff with quite a few people. I'll just name a few right off the bat. You had the Arctic Monkeys, which he actually plays keyboards with. The Arctic Monkeys.
Huh.
I've seen them in concert.
So you've probably seen James Ford too.
Could be.
He also did Florence and the Machine. He's did some work with Mumford and Sons, and he's working on a Pet Shop Boys album now, according to what I read. So
Okay, that's the best news I've heard all day. So there you go. Thank you.
Pet
So
Shop Boys.
I heard it here first. There's going to be a new Pet Shop Boys album. Okay.
I told Heiko earlier too. I don't even think you knew that, did you?
No,
Yeah, I'm good for
Ah,
something, man.
okay.
I'm good
Yeah.
for something, right? I do a
Even though
little
I-
research.
even though I saw the Pet Shop Boys last year in
You
concert.
did,
Oh, you did? Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
and they were with who?
New Order.
New Order. That's right.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, if you had that shirt, you could show it to him. That's a cool shirt where they mixed them both names.
It's in the other room.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Pet Shop Boys in New Order? It was-
Yeah, they
Is that
did
what
like
wow.
pet, new shop, order, boys.
Oh.
Yeah, they mixed them both in there. It's kind of cool the way they did it,
Funny.
though.
Yeah.
So also you have on this album, which is a guy I've heard of. He's an Italian violinist. His name is Davi Da. Another Dave. Just letting y'all know that there's another Dave in there. Rossi it's really like Italian, like Rossi. I don't know. I can't roll my tongue. But anyway, he's played for people like Natalie Imbruglia, Coldplay, Dido. He's done a lot of stuff. So he's doing all the string arrangements and things on this record. So, and there's a couple of times on here where there's this really beautiful string overtures that you can hear in there, which I thought was really cool. And when I looked up, I'm like, man, I've seen this guy's name before. And it's weird because me and Mike talk about this. We need a whiteboard that we can start putting producers and instruments, people that play these instruments on it, because we're always running across names on different records. And especially now that we're doing a lot from overseas, we start seeing these people on all these records all the time. And it's like, man, I've heard this guy's name before.
Mhm.
So that's just a couple of people that worked on it. First song on here is My Cosmos is Mine. To me, I mean, it starts out, it's real spacey with these electric shocks, I thought it was cool to bring in the spacey sound with a song that has Cosmos in the name. I thought that was a good tie in there.
Mhm.
Basically what this sounds like to me, and when you were talking about when they came over, just listening to y'all talk about their history, and when they come over, they were probably different when they were introduced to America. So this song kind of, when you were talking about it, reminded me of this song, because the song is kind of talking about, don't mess with me. You can't tear me down because I have my cosmos and you can't mess with it. Right. So it's kind of like something that they've been dealing with their whole career. You're not quite fitting in. Maybe I won't really say that, but they're different. Right. So they've dealt with that their whole career. And I feel like this song might have been a little bit of a reflection of that.
Could be. I know this one was basically just written by Martin. I've got them all listed who wrote which song.
Yeah.
And as a little bit of backstory on Dave and Martin. Martin lives in California, has his own studio at his house, and Dave lives in New York. So they both live in the States now.
Okay.
And my understanding is this album was pretty much written before Fletch passed.
Okay.
So I don't know that it all have been recorded, but they had a lot of the demos and everything kind of worked out a little bit. And it was kind of the next step was to let Fletch listen to it and kind of get his thoughts on it.
Yeah.
So, but this one's all Martin.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's always a little bit dark.
Yeah.
Yes. Is Heiko, do you know, I read that there was I want to say the name Richard Butler for some reason is coming into my head.
Yeah,
Was it
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll get to
okay,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
You did okay.
I have his
About
name too.
Songwriting and everything. Okay, yeah, okay, good.
So just another note though is this song was played live in concert. This was kind of like the opening to the show.
And it should be, because it's
yeah.
great intro
Yes.
there with that electric shock sound stuff. And you know,
Yeah.
kind of almost reminded me of walking into Frankenstein's lab a little bit
Yeah.
when I was listening to it. So
Well,
I could definitely see that in Martin's head. I mean, like I could imagine Martin could have had that in his head. Yeah.
I gotta say some of what I heard in this in this listen that I did. I actually heard some things that would relate very much to Nine Inch Nails as far as lyrics. Go. It again talking about the dark side of things. Just maybe not as brutally out front, but it's still related. It brought up the image of Nine Inch Nails to me.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, some of that
there it is.
the industry sound, you know,
Right,
because I
right.
consider Nine Inch Nails like an industrial rock.
Yep,
So,
yep.
and there is elements of that, the key swirling around that you can get that.
Mhm.
Not quite as edgy as something Nine Inch Nails would do as far as like overdriven instrumentation. But,
Right.
but yeah.
And
Yeah, and,
overdriven Antichrist.
Well,
and David, as you remember, Construction Time Again, one of their older albums,
Mhm.
they basically tried to get as much kind of industrial sounds into the album. They recorded like stuff bouncing off of metal and stuff like that, and they used
Yeah.
all of that as part of the instrumentation. So I feel like this one still has a little bit of that kind of in the background.
yeah. Yeah, they probably
Definitely.
can reproduce it now with keys better.
Yeah.
But, next song is Wagging Tongue. And
Yeah.
this is both of them on this one wrote this one, right? Heiko?
Yep, Dave and Martin both wrote this one.
Yeah. And I guess this one here, I'm kind of thinking, reading these words, what I'm interpreting all these songs. I'm sure everybody's going to have their own different interpretation. But this one to me was like, it's talking about how people are always trying to break you down, right? And they'll try to push you so far that they can even kill an angel, you know, I mean, because of the way they're always wagging their tongue, right? They're talking. And that's kind of what I got in this song. But there was some cool stuff in this one. The programmed synth trills, you know, that you know, it made me want to go over there and hit some because I just like hitting one button and hearing 6 or 7 notes go, you know. But the thing I liked the
Arpeggio.
most about this song was the chorus, right? So you have, I hope I get this right. I'm probably not gonna, but I'm gonna try. You have Dave doing the lower parts, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So when he says stuff like, I won't be offended, right? And then you got the higher part with Martin, right? So when they say stuff like, I'm left across the great divide, where you had Dave's keeping the same note low across the great divide, and then Martin's doing the high, great divide. So I love the way he was dropping the scale while Dave kept the low tone going. I thought that was really good. I mean, so I picked that out of this song. So
Yeah,
I
this was
think that
the first star I put on the songs. Ones I like. Yeah.
yeah.
I think and you know, going back to the 80s, I think that Dave and Martin always had that or there's a few songs where they had that with, you know, uh Dave at the lower tone, you know, driving through the song with, and then Martin simultaneously, or at least back at like a switchback,
Mhm.
you know, that
Coming over top with the
those
higher.
opposites, yeah, coming in higher. So I think you know, again, I go back to you know, the original song that, you know, people are people, you know, very much in the I don't know all the musical terms, but in the going out of the song, the fading of the song, definitely it's Martin with the, you know, the
higher.
high and Dave with the low. Yeah. So I think they've always worked together well
Yeah.
on
And
that. I
this,
think it's a good complement to each other. Yeah.
there's a lot of great harmonies on here between the two because they're so different, you know, and you can distinguish the two pretty easily when they're both singing together, you know. I was
Oh
hoping I
yes.
got the names right on who was doing what. Because
Yeah.
which one was it again?
Yeah. So my first take on this was it sounded very much like Kraftwerk. And so there's a
Yeah.
couple songs in here that are very Kraftwerk sounding.
Yeah.
For another old school band that is also in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, that's the first thing I thought when it first started was like you said, the synth portion. And I'm thinking Kraftwerk right away.
Yeah.
And I think, if I can just add to that, yes, I agree, and you know, I'm gonna probably go all fanboy right here because it's just like it's been, you know, people say, like, well, what's this next album going to, especially in the devotee group online, they'll say, well, what's this next one going to sound like? What's this? And I'm just like, my answer would be, they're going to sound like Depeche Mode. I mean, it's just, they have that
Well,
unique, you can usually, if not, I mean, I can always identify when it's a Depeche Mode song, obviously, because I know them, but it's, I think that they have an identifiable sound, uh, you know, uh, uh, musically, and with their lyrics, with their the
yeah.
singing, and like I said, I don't know all your musician technical terms, but
We
anyway,
don't either. We don't
you don't
either.
either. But
I'm
on
just a
this one,
bass
just
player. What do I know?
okay. One more quick thing about just this whole album is that it's and going back to what Heiko said about Kraftwerk, this elements of Kraftwerk. Really, this is a conglomeration, or an aggregation rather, of all their sounds over the years. That's what I feel like. I mean,
Yeah,
I just
well,
feel like it has elements of Depeche Mode in the '80s and the '90s and the early 2000s. I just think they've brought it all together.
And
oh,
they kind of like building on
yeah,
each
right,
other.
right.
Yeah.
Well, when
Yeah.
you bring
Yeah.
in bands too, like you were just talking about with Kraftwerk, okay, what that does with me is it melds the pot of, okay, it gets into what I called art rock for a long time. A lot of people call it progressive rock now. I don't know why, but when you get into bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Yes, and then it all melds in, and then Kraftwerk came along, and it was like, okay, they took it to the next level of really getting into their mode of doing things. And then you wind up with bands like Depeche Mode, do your Eurythmics, and bands like that, which it's kind of like a swoop. When you look at the music, it's like, okay, you take Yes, and then you just go over this way, and then there you are. You got Depeche Mode and everybody over here on this side doing the electronic thing. And I think, the more I listen to the album, the more I realize, and it's like David was saying earlier, that there were a lot of songs that I've heard by them that I didn't really realize it was Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if I liked it. I don't know. I mean, I really didn't give it much time, because I was more in search of where's that next heavy metal rock band, or where's that
Yeah.
next outlaw band coming from,
But
I mean,
thinking
that's
about
what
it,
I was
but thinking
looking
about
for.
it now, it should have been obvious to us that this is definitely Depeche Mode.
Right.
So don't fall,
Mm.
man.
Maggie,
Yeah.
get off. Get off.
Yeah,
the
blame
damn
it on the
table.
cat. That's what he always
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Don't worry about that drink
Oh.
that he's been drinking. It's the cat.
Well, she had her catnip tonight, so now she's
Oh, so she's on something too. Okay, that's
she's on another planet. On
So you're
another
finally
planet.
sharing it with her. You're finally sharing it with your cat.
Yeah, well, now the cat's doing things that I can't do.
All right, so the next one we get to is Ghost Again. This one to me was basically saying we're all gonna die. I mean, this is what the title of the album is about. Say your
Can't
hellos,
take it
say your
with you.
goodbyes. Either way, in the end,
Yeah.
we're gonna die, basically, right?
Mhm.
And I'm, of course, not going word for word what they're saying. I'm just saying that's what it reminded me of. But that one part was so familiar, that guitar line at the beginning. It's something, man. That da 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 da. I mean, I've heard that somewhere and I can't place it. And I've been trying to think of it for like 5 days of where I've heard that. And Mike will tell you that this stuff drives me nuts when I hear a phrase and I can't place where I've heard it. And then like 6 days later, I'll text him and say, I found it. And a lot of times it's not exactly like it, but it does remind me of it. So this one here, Heiko, if you want to talk about this one, this is the first one with Richard Butler, right?
Yeah. So Richard Butler, as soon as I saw the name, I thought, is it the Richard Butler that I know? So I did kind of research it a little bit. So this Richard Butler is the lead singer for the Psychedelic Furs.
Okay.
You might have heard the song. Again, I should have written this down because my brain doesn't work so good being this age now.
Well, was he on Love My
Pretty in
Way?
Pink. Pretty in Pink, My
Oh,
Way.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So if you heard Pretty in Pink, that's Richard Butler and his band. His brother's in the band. I've seen them 8 or 9 times. I don't really see them as best friends, him and Depeche Mode. So I wanted to know why they were talking to each other. So Richard Butler actually reached out to Martin and said, "Hey, we should try to write some songs together." So they sent some stuff back and forth. And Martin, this was during COVID, and Martin actually liked kind of getting different ideas from somebody because he'd never really wrote with anybody before except for Dave.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing most of that was lyric based, since he wrote all the music. So I guess getting ideas from somebody in the music biz kind of stirred up some juices or something. And so after this particular song, they sent it to Dave, and then Dave is like, "What the heck is this? Why are we bringing in other people?" But after he heard it, he liked it almost as much as Enjoy the Silence, which is one of their like biggest hits.
Right.
And he said even now he still kind of gets goosebumps playing that song live.
Yeah.
But they ended up writing, I think, 6 songs together.
I have them down here as with a lot, actually. Yeah.
So
Seven?
5 on this one, I think. And he's like, "Well, we could put like some kind of joint, project," but they decided to just put it on Depeche Mode's album so it would get more listens. And so that really surprised me because Richard Butler hasn't written anything in like 20 years until his latest album came out about 4 years ago.
Huh.
So, maybe they both kind of stirred something else up.
Well, I mean, when you're
Well-
when you're writing songs, it's always good to have another writer or someone
Mhm.
else you can bounce stuff off of. Because I know when I write songs, sometimes they all start to sound the same. And if I bring something to someone and they'll say, "Let's try this with it," and then you say,
Yeah.
"Well, let's try this with it," it actually works better that way because then you don't get the same guy doing the same thing every time.
Yeah.
So that's really cool though that he brought Richard Butler in like that. They
Yeah.
work great on the
Well,
songs.
Yeah.
The next song we get to is "Don't Say You Love Me." This is another Martin and Richard on this
Yep.
one. I mean, what I gather from this song is it doesn't really matter if we're opposites or if we're alike, you're still never going to love me. Right? What it sounds like to me. But one thing I want to say on this song, and then I'll turn it over to y'all. It's the first time I heard a real bass and real drums on the record because that hi-hat was real. Now, I'm not sure about some of the other drums, but that was a real hi-hat.
It
And that was a
wasn't
real
cricket.
bass.
It wasn't the cricket hi-hats.
Yeah, it was a nice sharp, hi-hat sound, which I liked a lot. And I
Mhm.
like this one because it had a bass. And I was like, all right, we finally got a good real bass here. He's got a little dirty effect on there, but it's super cool. But then when they get to that, the chorus, he hits that sub bass on that synthesizer. And man, if you had one of them things in your car, your license plate's going to go. Because that's such a low sub he does on that one.
Oh, you should have heard it in here with this subwoofer I got.
I love that, man, because I can see the left hand just going, whoa, I just,
Yeah.
the power of one finger sometimes is amazing. But the next one, My Favorite Stranger, to me, again, has a really cool guitar effect on it. He's got this thing going on in there. Sounds like a keyboard, but I'm telling you, it's a guitar. And it had this really cool effect. So I was like, I'm digging that. Another one, this is also Richard and Martin as well.
Martin. Mhm.
So this one to me, I take as it, even when you're looking in your mirror, you really don't even know who you are. Who am I? Basically, is what this song is, right? Your favorite stranger, It's just
It's
about
you.
basically
Yeah.
not knowing who you are, basically.
Mhm.
So I don't know what y'all's take on that one is.
Well, I put a star next to this one. I like this song too.
Yeah.
I have a hard time because I don't listen to lyrics as closely as I wish I could sometimes. Knowing what song is which sometimes either. So that's why I had to put a star next to it. But yeah, it's I think there's several songs in here that are a little bit slower,
Mhm.
but the instrumentation is like you said, David, very Depeche Mode. If you know them at all, then you know that it's them. Even if it's kind of not just Martin anymore, it still sounded like Depeche Mode to me.
So
Well, I think they've got a formula,
Yeah.
and they're not going to lose that formula. It's going to be, regardless of what they do, their songwriting is going to be dictated by what they have been doing for all these years.
at this point in the record, I feel like it's taken a little turn on number 5 because the first 4, there's no doubt they're Depeche Mode. It's the Depeche Mode formula. But when it gets to the middle, and I brought this up to Heiko earlier in the week, that it seemed to me like the middle started to get a little more versatile. You know, it wasn't the same kind of Depeche Mode formula. And I think it started with My Favorite Stranger. And then my favorite song on the record, believe it or not, is the next one, number 6, Soul With Me. And this one is the one Martin sings, right?
Yep.
My favorite as well.
Is it?
I was waiting for us to get to this one. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
this song, man. I mean, to me, it's someone who sees the end is near, right? And they're finally feel like they've been released. You know, it's also not just the end. It's also more, you know, you can look at it 6, 7 different ways. This is one of those songs where you can relate it to anything you really want to. But it's almost like freeing. It's a freeing of himself. He's been caged, and now he's taking his soul with him, and he's flying away. Now you can take it as death, which the whole album apparently is about death, or you can take it as your spirit and everything about you is finally I'm free of whatever it is I've been caged in. But I just love the way he sang, and I was telling Heiko earlier in the week, because I did come in and say some stuff to Heiko, which I shouldn't have. I should have saved it for tonight, but I couldn't help it. But but this one reminded me a little bit of Savage Garden. Reminded me a little bit of Duran Duran's that song, Another World, whatever it was. It's a weird one of their ones that don't sound like Duran Duran.
Ordinary World.
Ordinary World.
Yeah.
So it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. So, and this, but I just love the way his voice was on this one because it was so different than the rest of the record at this point, right? You finally, Martin's out here singing it, you know, and I just love this song, man. So
When I'm in the dilemma. I'm in one of your dilemmas, David, that you mentioned earlier, which was I heard something in the song that sounds like another song that I can't place. In the beginning, and hopefully all these songs haven't melded into my mind where I'm confusing it, but no, this was my favorite. But I believe this starts out with something that reminded me of an 80s R&B song, not general 80s R&B, like a specific song, and I can't place it. So I'm like you, for 5 days it'll drive me crazy until I hopefully figure it out.
And then it'll come up to you, yeah, and you'll be like,
yeah, right. Long after this is done, yes, it'll go. Yeah,
right. And it does have that feel. It has and again, I feel like sometimes their titles relate to how they're writing the music, where Soul With Me had a little bit of soul in there, you could feel it. And then the ending had this beautiful choir of angels, you know, and this is where I think Davida and all these strings came in, and to me it was just, I thought it was a great touch to end the song with the angels choir, and I don't know, I just love this song.
Definitely a goosebumps
I actually have them right now. Just talking
about it. Yeah.
So David, you'll be glad to hear that they played this in concert. This song.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
look forward to it.
And I was just going to say real quick, Martin's voice is kind of so much more delicate than Dave's voice, and he kind of weaves it in and out a little bit too. That they do a kind of a break during concerts where he'll sing a couple songs kind of by himself, and Dave will go off stage. And I think, like I said, this was one of those songs that Dave was off stage, and yeah, I've always really liked his voice. There's certain songs off the last album that I just like his background vocals. And every
Mhm.
time it gets to that point, that's the part I sing,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I'm gonna say about the vocal work that I've heard on this album, as far as the lead singing, and I appreciate it too. They did not use a lot of effects at all.
No, there's a little bit of reverb in there. You get a little bit of that
Here
hall
and there,
reverb,
here
but
and there,
it's
but-
really pretty much natural.
Yeah, it's not like a Robert Plant type thing where they naturally double everything he does. I mean, whenever he sings, it's a doubling of his voice to fatten it up. They were pretty much raw.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
I
on this
appreciate that.
particular one, Soul with Me, I mean, it wasn't even a perfect vocal. I mean, you could hear a
No.
couple times
Right.
where it was not solid, but they didn't change it, and I like that.
No.
So then we get to number 7. Caroline's Monkey.
Yeah, that's my song.
Now, is Caroline anything? Is there a Caroline that you guys would know that they would be talking about in particular?
I mean, it's possible that Caroline has some kind of connection with Richard Butler since it was written by both of them. I don't know either way if it's Martin or if it's just a word that sounded good at the time.
Right. I was
Uh,
thinking that
one-
too. It could just be a
one-
name.
One thing I did notice about this particular song is, first of all, the lyrics are really weird to me,
Yeah, they are.
notwithstanding, but there's a part in
explain.
the part in the synths that sounds exactly like it came from another Depeche Mode song. And I think it was probably early 90s, but I couldn't remember which song it was. And since they have 8 billion songs, it was hard for me to try to look it up. So,
Yeah. Well,
but as
this-
soon as I heard it, I'm like, I know that song. So
Yeah.
maybe he used the same like program, something or other. Who knows?
I think lyrically, this is the song that actually brought to mind 9 Inch Nails. To me, when I heard there was one line in there that was like, as the claws are tearing at her back or something like that,
Well,
and I
yeah,
was
I
like,
mean, it's
wow.
basically it's about addiction, is what it is.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
the monkey's clawing on the back,
Mhm. Yep.
bleeding through her, whatever it said, bleeding through her skin and all that stuff. It's basically about somebody who's really in a bad way in addiction. I'm going to probably just go ahead and say it's probably heroin just by reading the words, running with scissors on the needles and pins. That's just basically sticking the pins in, even the part where they're talking about fading is better than failing. You just want to
Yep.
cover up your problems with whatever it is you're addicted to. Even, you'd rather be fixed than healed. I mean, that's any drug addict's motto
Yeah.
is, fix me, don't heal
Yep.
me,
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been
So
a
I
big
got you
theme.
on that one, Heiko. I got those words.
Yeah.
That's been a big theme though with bands for way back into the 60s actually.
It
I
is.
mean, it's like
It's a
Uh,
problem though, man, and everybody
yeah,
has dealt with that problem. And I mean, just listening to you guys talk earlier, I would imagine that Dave may have been through this too, right? Didn't y'all say he was into drugs?
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
he was heroin.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad.
So
I think that particular time he was into heroin. I think Martin was drinking too much. And then
Yes.
I think Fletch was actually depressed.
Mhm.
well,
So
they
try to make an
definitely
album with
portray
those
all
three.
that. They
Right,
portray
yeah.
all that, right? A lot of
It's
being on
just
the road too, man. I mean,
it's-
it's a lonely process, and and if you're any depressed at all, you're always looking for something, So it's
Yeah.
easy for a starving musician touring around to want to cover up his problems with a drug or something. So that's why it happens a lot. So for sure.
Yeah. Well,
when we're talking about addiction, especially Dave's addiction, also just in my opinion, and knowing a little bit of history about the band members, especially Dave, also their beginnings, I mean, Dave, Heiko, please jump in if I get any of this wrong. But Dave was a troubled youth, I believe he was. I know his original name, last name was not Gone. It was Colcott, I believe, and I believe that like maybe the father left the family early. I do know he was a troubled youth. He used to steal cars.
Yeah.
Basically, I think joyriding. Not for any profitable gain or anything. I'm not sure, but anyway, so I'm just saying that I don't know much about Martin's background, but obviously they all had issues, later in life. But I'm just saying that a lot of that, as does with a lot of musicians and singers and songwriters, they that kind of that bad start in life, and that has that effects, that reaches out throughout their life, and so that music, they find that way to express themselves, to their outlet becomes music, and then as you pointed out, a lot of times that fame brings on a whole other set of problems as well.
Well,
So
yeah. It feeds.
Well,
The whole thing feeds as far as like say, all right, you came from a very troubled youth and you start writing songs about what you've lived through, and then all of
yeah,
a sudden you hit some fame. Well, then you got this other crowd that's coming over. Well, I got something that's going to make you feel good,
yeah, okay, yeah,
So
yeah,
you're writing songs and you're feeling good,
but
and then the feel good is overtaking the part of, well, you're supposed to be writing songs, and
well, and that's what I was gonna say. Most of your better songs are from people that are hurting.
yeah, that are hurt
You're
or
not.
hurt. Yeah.
Yes.
You don't have a bunch of rich kids out there writing happy music that you want to listen to, right?
Well, look
Right.
Always the troubled youth that writes these dark songs, and you're like, man, I
Yeah.
feel that.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
He was
Yes.
talking right to me.
Yeah, exactly. I was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look at Amy Winehouse, for example. I mean,
Yeah.
just wow.
Yeah.
I mean, a flash in the pan, but
Yeah.
certainly made a mark.
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so then we get to Before We Drown, right? And this one was Dave Gone, and this is where we had Peter and Christian writing with him.
Yeah.
On this one.
Mm.
And I guess that's a team that he worked with quite a bit because they're on a few songs here.
I think this is basically the backing band
Okay.
for the tour is writing, because I think they've been with him with the whole band for many years now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like maybe 15 years or something like that.
And for this song here, I came up with, well, the intro kind of reminded me of that song Rock On. You know what I'm talking about? Hey kid, rock and roll.
Oh, yes.
It has a little bit of that groove
Dave
in it.
Essex. That's a Dave Essex.
Yeah. But the song to me kind of was like, if you're looking for more in a relationship, whatever whatever it is, and if you remain idle, you're going to drown in your misery. So we got to keep moving forward. Let's get past this problem, or else we're just going to drown in it. Is kind of what I'm getting on this one.
Yeah.
And not only a relationship. Again, these songs all can reflect many things. It could be society as well. But that's what I was getting on that song there. So good song though.
Still,
I feel like this middle part of the record is now here. We've gotten 4 songs in a row that are all sound different to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the first time I heard this song, because it's a little bit slower, it kind of reminded me of a Martin song.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I had to double check, and then I realized it was a Dave song. And I think this is what Martin was saying about Dave's writing. It's gotten a lot better. It's kind of like the George Harrison of the group,
Right.
starts writing, getting credits and finding out, oh, he's not a bad writer.
So he said he started liking it because it sounds like his writing.
No, I didn't say that.
Kidding.
This is what I thought. Yeah.
I'm joking. But you're finally writing good. It sounds like one I wrote.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to jump in.
It's just
Just
a humble
something.
opinion.
Yes. I just want to jump in something that Heiko brought up. I just looked it up. Peter Gordino's been working with them since '98. So
wow. So
good 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew it was a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. That is a good
Have
line.
you ever heard Heiko him referred to as like the fifth member or something like that? So maybe that was on the devotee group. Maybe that.
I mean, you know,
Maybe that's what
he
I.
gets the applause and everything, and he's
Yeah.
basically the main keyboardist during
Yeah.
the
Right.
show.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Now
Yeah.
that now that Martin plays guitar for like at least half the songs.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, he did some of the programming on some of these songs too. So I mean, you know,
I could see that.
yeah. So he was doing some of the studio work with them as well. So, yeah, they credit him and also Christian for doing some programming on a few of these songs. So, then we get to the next one. People are good. The thing I got to say about this one mostly is the way he says "good." It's like good or good. People are good. I don't know. I can't even do it like he does. But I have it written out right here in the long O's. You see, good, 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 good. This one, I guess, here is, you know, you're trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. You want to hope that people are good, even though they keep proving to you they're not. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
You're like, you know, I know he screwed up again, but maybe he'll learn next time, right? I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting on this one. This is a Martin song. Still, I like it. Again, the word "good" made the whole song for me. You know, good, good. I know.
So
I'm
this
gonna
is
practice
one of
that
my
later.
favorite songs on the album.
Is it? Yeah.
There's a couple reasons. This is another one of those that as soon as I heard it, I thought Kraftwerk. And I
can
listened
see
to
that,
this
yeah.
with a couple of the people that went to the concert with me, who are pretty big fans also. And one of them suggested that this sounds very similar to People Are People. If you listen to it a couple times, you can almost hear it
Yeah.
as like part two of People Are People.
Huh.
I get that too. The phrasing at the beginning, you know, like keep telling myself that people are good. You know, it kind of does that same that bubble pop kind of.
Yeah.
That's not really a term, but I just
Bubble pop.
That's okay.
No, it's kind of like bubble pops along with the words, right? So
I have to shamefully admit that I did not hear the song, so I have not heard the entire album yet, and so now I'm intrigued especially because you say it reminds you of People Are People.
I think you might listen to it and might think that same thing. We'll see.
Okay, yeah. So I'm writing it down to make it a priority I'll probably listen to the rest after we're done.
so you can go
usually
back and
with
look at our notes and you'll be like, man, he was right, or man, he was
yes, that's right. Yeah,
he
was way off.
Dave don't know what he's talking about, man. This guy is...
but yeah, now I have a question about this song. So you said it was a Martin song.
Yep.
Did you mean Martin wrote it, or Martin wrote it and sang it as well?
He only wrote it. I don't think he sang this one, right? This was Dave.
Okay.
No, Martin only sang the one song,
right?
Which is the song.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. And then my other question is, so the way he says, and this is for you, Heiko. So the way he says "good," you also did it remind you of what's the one that came out in '97?
That's good or so good or something like that.
It's so good, or it's still good or something. Was it good? Was that similar the way he said "good"? Or
to be honest,
it's
that
no
didn't
good
pop up. I didn't.
Okay,
I
good.
didn't really notice it.
Okay,
This guy's British. What do you expect?
Well,
Yeah.
so,
I know, right? Yeah,
it's my job to look for the one thing in these songs that will make y'all wonder, right? So I just find that word, you know. It's my job.
No, but I think on Ultra on the song, I think it's no good is what it was called, and he actually said, "I'm a terrible singer, and so I'm not going to sing it exactly, but I'm just saying it's like it's no good or something like that." Yeah. Obviously,
like,
much better.
He lengthens it.
I'm flat there, but
I kind of say it's kind of like I'm getting good, like cheese, right? I like some good. You know.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Totally don't sound like that.
Oh, okay.
You want some
That's too bad. That'd be
cheese?
interesting.
Some good.
I mean, this song reminds me a lot of cheese.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I hear it, I think, I'm gonna go get some cheese and crackers, right? And then we get to the next one. The next one is Always You. This is another Martin written on this
Yep.
one. Basically
Another slower one.
slower one. And world is crumbling. I've always got you, right? I mean, no matter what's going on in my world, you're always that constant there for me, is what I get from this one, Not much to this one, really. I didn't have a lot written on this one, but that was it.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. Then we get to number 11. Not that was a bad song, by the way. It was just, it just kind of wasn't a whole lot. I couldn't pick out a word in there that I liked, to hold on to. Then we get to number 11, Never Let Me Go. And this one's it's kind of like you're trying to convince somebody that you're supposed to be together, right? We're running out of time. Just come on. Let's just get together. Why not? What we got to lose, right? So, like 10, 11, and 12 remind me a lot of 1, 2, and 3, sort of. I mean, you're starting to get the same sounding, I guess, because Martin was probably heavy writing on the beginning and the end, and in the middle as well. But I just feel like the first few sound a lot like the last few, and that's why I like the middle of the record so much, because you got such a transition of different things.
Which
I
is
wanted to
strange
mention-
because that's all the Richard Butler ones. Of the
Yeah,
middle
that is
portion.
kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Even though my favorite song was not Richard Butler, was it? That was just Martin, right?
Caroline's Monkey.
No, Soul With Me. Yeah,
Correct.
Soul
That
With
was
Me
just
was
Martin.
just Martin. Yeah,
That was just Martin.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then we get to the last song, and Speak to Me, which seems to be one that everybody's talking about, and I'm pretty sure they probably did this live, if I had to guess.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great song to end this record with. This was written by Dave, actually, with Christian and James and Marta. So the song is kind of I'm trying to think of how to put it. It's basically, I see somebody at the end, they're at their wit's end, right? On this one. And it mentions about being on a bathroom floor, right? And to me, they're just looking for something or someone to help them, right? Whether it's a God or a friend or someone, but they're like, all right, this is it for me. Unless I can get somebody to talk to me, then it's over for me, and I feel like it's like a cry of help of some sort, and it starts out really freaking sad. I mean, really. And then it gets to the middle and you're feeling his help, his cry for help. And then it gets this great buildup at the end, man. And by the time you're at the end, you're really pulling for this guy, right? You're like, man, come on, somebody talk to him, because you want him, please somebody help this cat, right? So, and then I feel like at the end with the buildup, he or she or whoever it is finds whatever it is they're looking for, and it doesn't quite they don't, it's not their end, but then again you start to think after you hear that last note fade away, you're like, well, maybe it did end. I really don't know. So it's a very good ending to me, because it keeps me in suspense, and I love the sadness that built up into the cry for help and into the ray of light, whether it's the end or the beginning or whatever it is that you want to interpret it to. But I thought it was the best way they could have ended this record was the way they did it.
Well,
That sounds like a Dave Gahn experience, don't you think, Heiko? Like, especially his experience back in, what was that, 96 or whatever that we talked about earlier, when he because I remember when that happened to him, in that LA hotel, he said it was a suicide attempt, but it was also a cry for help. I made sure people could find me, is what he said. And so so it's kind of like, yeah, so that's what that reminds me of. It's and this was written by
It was written by
Dave.
Dave. Yeah.
Dave.
So
Okay, yeah.
I heard an interview with him. I think it was yesterday. I listened to it, and where he was talking about the songs that he had written. This was one of them, he had they'd already done the My Cosmos Is Mine, so that they kind of knew that was going to be the first one. He wanted something to kind of bookend it, so he kind of went on a walk in New York by his house by himself, no cell phone, nothing, and it kind of came to him. So maybe it was from all of his experiences that he kind of pulled from, and then he realized that he couldn't just sing it into his phone, so he had to run back home and record it so he could remember it.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
So,
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, and with the three people that helped him write it, you know, I guess I would say it's the part of really the band and the producers. So, you know, I mean, he got with Christian and James, who's already done a lot on the record. So he probably went in there and said, "This is what I wanted to do." They all sat around, said, "Let's do this." And
Now,
it ends up
was
being
that
a
on?
very emotional song to me. I mean, I don't know anything about this band or any of their past,
Right.
but that song right there, whew, you know,
Well, I
it
know.
got to me a
Yeah.
little bit.
All I know is, you know, when I was listening to the album and then I started writing down the titles, and like 10, 11, and 12 seemed to me like they were really tied together. You know, it was like Always You, Never Let Me Go, and then Speak to Me, you know, and it was like, okay, here's that scream, you know, talk to me, you know, let's work this out, you know, or I don't know, you know, I mean, that's the way I took it as far as the way it was lined up on the album and everything.
Yeah.
Now I didn't do a deep study into the lyrics themselves, each line, you know, I mean, I'm just taking it at total surface value. So
I figured since there's no bass on here, I had to do something, right? So
It's
I'm just joking.
you had to analyze something,
I,
right? That's it.
I figured I better get into the lyrics because, I mean, honestly, all the people that I know that like Depeche Mode always talk about their lyrics, you know. So I knew
Oh, yes.
if I dove into their lyrical content, that is probably going to take me for a ride, right? And it did,
Yes.
you know. So I will be
Oh, yeah.
honest with you guys, and I'll say a couple things real quick, and then we can go into some of the stuff you got from the concert, Heiko. When I went into this record, I was thinking, man, I'm gonna hate this record. I just, you know, I'm just being honest with you. I'm like, I'm not gonna get through this, right? And I put it on one day, and it's a short CD. It's only like 45 minutes, 48 minutes, maybe something like that. So I went and drove and got a pizza and come back. And by that time, I was finished with the whole CD. And just for the first listen, I picked up maybe 4 or 5 things right off the bat, right? And I said, all right, I'll dive into that later. And then the next listen, I started listening closer, and then I started to realize there wasn't a whole lot of bass and drums. So then I said, okay, this is going to be a headphone record, you know, because you're not going to get everything if you're not listening to it with headphones on. That's just kind of the way it is, because when you put them on, that's when you feel like the beginning you're walking into Frankenstein's lab, right? You're getting all this stuff flowing, and you have to have that on a lot of these songs. So by the end of the third or fourth listen, who actually has been with him for a while, right? Do you know that name, Marta?
That doesn't sound familiar, but it could be.
So let me see if I can find the name on here, because I thought they had mentioned something about this person in one of the interviews, and I'm not really seeing anything now. I'll edit that out.
It was one of the producers.
Was it an older producer or something?
Yeah, I think it was one of the producers, because it was like Ford and Marta.
Oh, here we go.
They kind of worked as a team.
It was the engineered
that's right. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he helped, or was it? I guess it's a he.
I think it's a female, but I'm
Could
not
be a female.
100%
I'm not sure. We'll just say they wrote that song as well. And it's yes, Mike, I made it through that many times. Even though when we were going in, we're like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it.
Well,
I'm gonna be depressed. I can see it.
First time I tried to listen to it, I got through 3 songs and I was like, no. I had to go back. I really did. I had to keep pushing myself, and I didn't have it. It only took, actually, today, I actually enjoyed listening to it. I really did. I mean, it took me a while to get to that element of enjoying. You know,
Well,
I mean,
Yeah, and I was doing that a little bit too because like the third or fourth listen, it was like I'll do 3 songs in the morning on the way to work, 3
Mhm.
songs on the way home, next day, same deal. And then when I got in here tonight and I really started because I was picking up lyrics as we went. Again, that was really what I was starting to focus on after like the third listen, because usually I'm trying to learn some of the bass lines, figure out some of the drum time signatures and stuff in my head, and then come back here, mess around with it, see what I can't do, and then complain about why they had to go do something complicated and I can't do it. Right.
Mhm.
So on this one, it was more of I sat down in here with the words, and that's when the whole album came together for me. Because when you start diving into the lyrical content, you start to see the movements of the music with it as well.
Right.
So it got to a point where I was like, I can really, I get it now.
Mhm.
I'm probably not going to go back and buy all their records. I'll tell you that. But for getting into this one record, I mean, I think it's a great record by Depeche Mode, right? Because everything about it is Depeche Mode to me. I'm not familiar with them, but what I imagine of all the stuff I've heard in the past, I feel like, and you guys can tell me, this compares to anything they've ever done. I mean, to me, it seems just as good as what they were doing 20, 30 years ago.
Mhm.
I think their
Mhm.
their vocals sound great still,
Mhm.
right? So the Dave doesn't sound like he's missed a beat at all. His voice
No.
sounds exactly
Mhm.
as strong as it did back then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
And age, I think he's 61, almost 62. Am I right, Heiko? Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He's
And
And
young.
Martin's like a year older than him.
He's young.
yeah, because I knew he was born in 61. I just think they honestly stronger than they've ever had. The voices and everything, I think are stronger, and I think again, just going on the personal side of their lives, I think that they just with what they've shared through music and through their own testimony of their lives is I just what a lot of people go through is you get to a certain age and you're just like you have a lot of things figured out. No one will ever have everything figured out, but I'm just saying, they have a lot of things figured out in their lives. They're good in their lives. Everything is coming in order. Yes, I mean, there's been some sadness like with Fletch dying and but they also a couple years ago were inducted in the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall
Yep.
of Fame.
that was going to be
2020.
one of my next questions. Did they
Yeah,
ever make it
2020.
in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
it was the COVID year, so they didn't get to play. They just basically sent in a video, said thank you, but that was
Yeah.
it.
But
Yeah.
see,
Yeah, and that's when Fletch was still alive, so that was good.
Yep.
That
so
the three of
that's
them,
nice.
yeah.
But a
So
band like this is deserving of it because they've changed the landscape of music, right? Because I hate when they just put bands in because they're bands, right? At
Like
least
Sheryl
the
Crow.
like Sheryl Crow.
Yeah.
She's on the ballot right now,
Sheryl
if
Crow
you can
is.
believe it. Yeah.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we can make a whole
Yeah. Oh,
episode of Hall of Fame people, honestly.
you rendered David speechless, I think.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just like they put people in just because now, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Sheryl Crow, great,
Mhm.
okay, but what does she do to change music, right? That's
Right.
what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Change
Yeah.
music.
Right.
Well, I
People
think
like
that
Depeche
ain't about the
Mode,
only thing.
they changed it. I mean, a new wave, new age, they brought that into more of a spotlight. So, I mean, Deep Purple probably ain't even in yet, right?
Well, Alice Cooper.
That I don't remember.
But Sheryl Crow,
Alice Cooper didn't make it.
Well, I don't know that she's going to get in, but
she'll get in.
Been nominated. Yeah.
Well,
at least the first time.
She's got a long track record. I mean, the Don Henley, doing backing vocals for him, it's going to take her a long way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I think one thing that she
I don't
did,
buy it.
well, I think the one thing that she did was she knocked down a lot of doors for the girls.
Oh, come on, man. There's a lot better women out
in
there
the
before her.
business.
Pat Benatar, is she in yet?
Uh-huh.
Yes. She's already made it.
She got
Did
nominated
she?
last year.
I think she made it. I think she already
well, they
made it.
better
She's
have-
not on a ballot again this year, as far as I know, so she must have made it.
She made it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If they'd have put Sheryl Crow in before Pat Benatar, boy, I'd have been going to Cleveland. I'd have been going to Cleveland. So real quick, I'll give you my goods and bads on this, and then we'll go into some stuff that Heiko's got. The goods recorded well. No, don't get mad at me when I do this, because this is where all the comments come in, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I hate puppies, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure Billy Sherwood's going to write a note to me.
And you
Anyway.
eat lizards.
So I thought it was recorded super well. Great sounds. All the keys were fantastic. The bass that he did play sounded cool because it had real bass and the cool sounds that he put on it. I thought that was cool. The singing was as well as they've ever sounded, in my opinion. So the orchestration was great. And the songs, the way they flowed through the record was a good flow. I hate when records sound like greatest hits. This one had a flow. Now we get to the bad. Forgive me. I thought a lot of it was similar sounding, right? There was a couple times when I was really sad and depressed and I wanted to cry, which I guess makes a good album too. But the biggest problem I had is not enough bass and drums.
I assumed that was coming.
No, I know. I didn't kill this record too bad. I actually enjoyed it after like the 5th listen and got into the words. So that being said, I'm pretty much done. I'm gonna let Heiko take over and show us some stuff that he had at the concert. Mike, anything you want to add to that real quick?
About the only thing I want to add to it is the biggest hump that I had to get over with the whole situation is the sampling and the sequencing. I not real big on being able to reach over and hit a key on a keyboard and turn my back on it and start playing another set of keys.
That's
fun. That's carrying a whole load right there. But I'm not gonna delve deep into that.
Well, you don't like music?
It's just I love music. I want to see a person standing there actually playing that stuff is what my problem is.
So I knew going into this,
Yeah,
because we're a rhythm section, right?
But
And we're listening to a record that doesn't have a rhythm section.
Yeah. And it's well, I mean, I could draw a line and go, okay, this is what's happened to live music, but I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
Well,
we always rate these records, and I'm not going to ask you guys to do that because you're too much of a fan.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't even going to ask
biased.
Mike because I didn't think Mike would want to rate it, but I gave it a 7.4 just because of what it is, and they did it well. And I think it's worth 3/4 of the way there, right? To me, it was a 7.4 record. It's not something that I'm going to run out and put in my collection, but for what it is, and I do this with country because everybody knows that there's 2 kinds of music I hate, and that's country and Western, right? But I've reviewed country music, and I always give it an honest opinion, and I'm doing the same thing here. It's not my favorite style, but for what it is, I thought it was a pretty daggum good record, and a 7.4 is where I'm going with it. Mike, did you get above 4?
I'm gonna sit there on 5 with it. But getting back to what you were saying, I look at music like, can I sit on the front porch around with a couple of friends?
If you got a battery pack, yes.
And
With this
pick
one?
up, and somebody pick up an acoustic guitar, and I pick up a snare drum or whatever, and we sit there and just play some music.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that with this.
You can't.
Okay, brother-in-law. No, the challenge is on,
You
brother-in-law. I
can't do
want
that
you
with
to
that.
do that. I want you to pick up an acoustic guitar and I want you to try to play one of their songs. And I'm
That's
not
not
and
what
I'm not
I'm
saying
saying.
that to be like
That's
I'm not
what
saying
I'm
that
saying.
to be. No,
That's
I'm
not
just
what
saying like no, I want you to see if it can be done. That's what
Personal Jesus.
No,
personal Jesus, yes. Yes, try
Well,
that
there's
one.
actually a
Yes,
bass on
definitely.
that one.
no. I mean, I can go and get a keyboard
Yeah.
controller and take my computer and I can sample their songs, and I can sit on the front porch, hit the key, and sit there and drink a beer while the keyboards play it.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Mike. I told
but
Heiko I was going to do this.
My point is, it's a totally different wheelhouse than what I expect musically from
Mhm.
band. You know, I mean, it's a totally different outlook, a totally different approach, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. To me, I look at it like, can somebody pick up that guitar and sit down and entertain me, or do they need to have a sequencer?
Well,
And then that involves carrying a whole unit out on the
I
front
told
porch.
Heiko what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a video of this record with me playing bass lines on every song. So if you want, I'll send it to you and you can put drum tracks on it.
Yeah.
And we will
Okay.
do this whole record with a rhythm section.
There you go. I'll do it. And I'll set the electronic drums up and do it, but I gotta swing sticks and hit them.
But you could. You could. So.
And
No,
I just want to say for the 5 rating, brother-in-law, you are disowned officially. So no, no.
It's actually higher than I thought Mike was going to come in at. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what you said. You said a 4. So
yeah, I thought he wasn't
that-
even going to rate it.
I mean, with the vocal work that they did on it, I was very impressed. And I was very impressed with the production.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the lyrics. You know, I didn't really delve deep into the lyrics, but from what I did capture, it's I mean, it's top notch lyric writing and stuff. You know,
I'm going to get Heiko to share a screen here, and I'm going to tell you why
Yeah.
they actually got a point or two from me on this without even being music. Watch this. Go ahead,
So,
Heiko.
so David, before we start any of this about the concert, in case you don't want to have any spoilers for
Spoiler
your
alert.
for your concert adventure,
Maybe.
I will be talking a little bit about what happened during the concert and share a few pictures.
No, I'm excited to hear it. And I've already seen that if they are following the same playlist throughout all their shows, I've already seen
For the most
playlist.
part. Okay. All right. So I guess everyone can see the screen. This is the album cover.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna again for the Dave interview that I heard. So they've been basically for 25 years they've had a art director for their videos and their stages and everything. This guy named Anton Corbin, and he basically, if you watch their super old videos, it's basically a mess. You know, it's like 4 young whippersnappers just playing instruments, live type videos.
Right.
And then he comes on and starts a kind of it changes basically everything that they did, and it was very stylized, and it's kind of the same style ever since for like 25 years. So Dave was coming to take all these pictures for the show, and this was the first thing he saw, and immediately he thought, oh, 2 M's. So obviously you guys mentioned it looks like Wings, but the first thing he saw was the 2 M's for the album name.
So one thing too I want to say real quick is with the D and the M, is that for Dave and Martin?
No, that's Depeche Mode.
Could be. How do you know?
Dean Martin.
Well, I mean, you know, I just think it's cool that their names are Dave and Martin and they have the D and the M.
Yeah.
So this right here picture that he's showing you now is one reason why I gave this album an extra 1.5. Because this one particular picture right here is very powerful to me because of the fact that it had Fletcher been there, he would have been this third shadow, right? So with the 3 shadows, with the 2 people, I just thought that was really super cool right there. And I'll go.
So, and then there's one thing I just noticed looking at this a little closer, besides the 2 of them and then 3 shadows, if you look at what Dave's doing with his hands,
right?
Yeah.
That was from the World in My Eyes video, and that was Fletch's favorite song.
Okay.
So
that's kind of like a nod to Fletch there as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was kind of cool. And this looks like what, maybe New York in the background? Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the concert that I went to was on the 30th of March. It was at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Okay.
It holds between 12 and 18,000. And as you can see there, it was sold out. It's a pretty fancy arena. I think they play hockey, basketball, the usual kind of indoor arena type thing. It's right off the strip. And I'd never been to this arena before. So yeah, it was pretty cool looking, very futuristic. And they had a couple of video screens here and there. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of people outside. This was a little less than an hour before the show. And then we had to wait for this to come back up to take a picture of it. And I think it took like 15 minutes because there were so many concerts and things going. But this is on the arena itself, kind of showing you the show that's happening that evening.
Yeah.
So these are not in any particular order, just kind of wanted to show you a little bit of the show itself. And there's not a lot of pictures. I'd figured I'd just share a few.
Look at that, Mike.
So
Yeah, I like that backdrop here.
yeah, I mean, look at that.
yeah, so that was
concept.
an actual M with a huge screen behind it.
Right.
And so there you go. There's your real drum set there.
Yeah, there it is.
There's Dave with the microphone. I think that's actually the keyboardist playing. I think he did play bass maybe on one song. And then I think Martin was to the left of that. And so Martin played guitar for half the songs and he played keyboard the other half, or he sang a couple songs.
That's a pretty clean stage, man. Not a whole lot there.
Yeah, well, Dave is very active. For somebody that's 61 years old, he runs around. He sheds that jacket stayed on for like a half a song. He does a lot of butt jiggling, which gets some of the crowd very excited. We were probably about 10 rows back. And again, this goes back to the ticket prices and everything. Paid way more than I've ever paid for any concert ticket in my whole life. And then this particular setup is the main stage, and then like a T comes out into the crowd. So then they had two large screens on each side. And of course, what happens is the very first thing that happens is everybody takes their cell phone out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That way you can see it in different screens.
Yeah. I mean, look, the one screen's a little bit different color than the screen on the right.
Right. Variety.
They had a bunch of cameras kind of following Dave around. And one thing I did notice is Dave looks still pretty good. Martin looked a little on the older side than I noticed before.
I noticed that in the interview myself, that Martin looked a little rougher.
Yeah. So I think these are the first couple songs because the lights were really cool on this. And then after a while, I kind of forget that I'm supposed to be taking pictures or not taking pictures, and I just try to enjoy myself. So here's one that Martin's background singing, and he's up on the screen. And there's that M. Again, they kind of peaked some of the graphics and video in between the M. Sometimes it was on top of the M also. And so I think overall the whole stage production was very good. It's always been in the past too. So and again, all four of them. So that was one thing that I noticed. Originally, Fletch played bass, like synth bass, on a lot of the early songs.
Right.
And then I think it got all programmed in there, so he didn't have a huge amount to do. So even though they miss him as a part of the band, they didn't really replace him in the concert. So it's still the same four guys, and it would have been Fletch also, but now it's just the four guys. So again, my camera was a cell phone, so it distorts them a little bit, but it gives you a little bit better idea. It looks like Martin plays a lot of Gretsch guitars.
Yep.
And again, Dave in my opinion, his voice was a little strained.
Yeah.
But you know, he's playing a lot of songs. He has high energy the whole time. He
Yeah.
does a lot of spinning, running around, getting the crowd involved. Um, and like you were talking about before, David, the whole S&M thing, you know, he's a little more conservative now, but if you look down at the bottom next to his knees, he's got straps. And then those are connected down at the bottom by his ankles.
Oh,
So he's still wearing those weird pants.
uh-huh.
Well, it's his thing, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and
Yeah.
You got to keep the
and
character.
then Dave has got his white patent leather shoes on, or boots or whatever. And you know, he's always been pretty flashy.
Yeah.
Dave will go from side to side. He'll go to the end of the I do have a pretty close view, but I decided not to put this in
Well,
my
it's a pretty cool picture because you can see how the M is the screen.
yeah, and like I
So-
said, it's actually
Mhm.
separate from the back screen.
Right. That's
So
crazy looking.
Yeah, it kind of sticks out as a screen, but it also has a back screen.
Right.
And this last picture is one that when I originally did it, his face was all distorted because they used the back screen and the M screen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And when he panned on there. So this is Ghost again, I believe, the video. And like I said, it was a great concert. David, I think you'll love it.
good.
As a fan, they played a lot of everything. You know, you get a lot of the hits, you get the 5 songs from this album. And you know, they're always the consummate professionals.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was, oh no, I did have a couple more. Okay.
Oh, look at it. Okay.
All right. So then this one right here is kind of the World in My Eyes, kind of tribute to Fletch.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they basically just showed his picture and then morphed it from younger to a little bit older. I thought they were, and he ended up covering his eyes. And I think a couple people in our group said, you know, I wish that he would have opened one of his eyes or something. But
Can I ask you, how did he pass? Do you know?
I think it was heart failure.
Heart failure?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I read it, aortic dissection.
So, yeah, something related to
Something
that.
like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, heart failure. Yeah, basically, yeah, heart related. Yeah.
Now, was he still a member of the band?
Yeah.
I mean, there was no
Yes.
dissension there. They weren't like split up or anything.
No, he
No.
was kind of the mediator between everybody. And so again, he was the kind of the guy that he was the, I think what Dave and Martin said is he was Depeche Mode's greatest fan.
Yeah.
So if you've ever seen any of the concerts, he was a lot of the, you know, yay, rah, rah, rah type of
Hype guy.
dancing and
Right,
hype
right.
guy. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and one thing to tell you how, you know, and I know some of the details about what happened with band member Alan Wilder who left. But Alan Wilder, I believe, through a tweet, sent out a very heartfelt tweet about when Fletch died, about you know, just the loss and what Fletch meant to the band and to him. So I thought that was nice, you know, put the animosity aside towards the band and you know, show that respect.
Because they probably were still friends, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
or at least not on bad terms.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So this is one of the many skulls that showed up. Again, just to kind of show you, like, the screen was just enormous. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was no U2 screen, but it was still pretty big.
Yeah.
And again, Martin is singing backgrounds on almost every song. And again, he weaves so nicely in between. I thought his mic might have been a little bit low, but you know, sometimes Dave's just kind of overpowering. And Dave does a lot of screaming also during the show, so maybe that's why his voice was a little strained. I think this was the 4th show of their tour.
Is this Peter Gordino on the keys here?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep.
that's who the keyboard player is. Okay.
Yep.
That's
There
pretty
you
cool.
are.
You're really
Yeah.
close there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, everybody pushed up to the stage, and he actually yelled at a couple people. And when he holds out the microphone like that, he's just getting the crowd's participation.
Right.
And he does a lot of that too. So, and then this is another one where Martin is singing, and Dave's off stage. Normally Martin will sing a couple songs in a row. A lot of his stuff is very acoustic, maybe just the keyboard
Right.
and him, or the guitar and him. So, and then this was at the very end of the show.
Very cool.
Again, just the four of them. And so, they played, I think they had 4 encore songs.
Wow.
And I would say the beginning of the show was the new stuff. And then after about halfway to the end was all older stuff. So
I heard that, or I read, I told you I saw the playlist. I read that the last song right before the encore was Enjoy the Silence. Oh, spoiler alert. Sorry. Okay. Possible. Was Enjoy the Silence. And then the final song was Personal Jesus.
So that's all I had. And I appreciate you letting me join in.
Yeah, it was great having y'all here because I mean, I've learned a lot about Depeche Mode tonight.
Yeah.
I never knew. So, and hopefully people watching will get a little understanding of some of the history through you guys, because they weren't going to get it from me and Mike. I mean, we just don't really know their history that well. You know,
Yeah.
I can break down this record all day long, but when it comes to, what they've done in the past, I'm clueless. So
Yeah, it was.
And when I made the suggestion, I was surprised you said yes.
me
To
and
be
Mike,
honest with you.
we've been wanting people to come on our show for a long time, and we haven't really been able to get people on that want to do stuff. And when you said you wanted to do it, and David said he wanted to do it, I was like, great, this is a perfect opportunity. We'll have us all here, and it'll make it hard editing for me. But that's all right. It'll be a good show, and I appreciate y'all coming on and doing it, man. I mean, it was great to me.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
I want to say, can I just say 2 quick things? It's going to take me about 15 seconds.
You could say something for 20 minutes if you want to.
Okay. One, I just want to correct something I said in the beginning, which was I referred to an up-tempo song. One of the early up-tempo songs is Everything Counts. What I didn't mean that when I meant Just Can't Get Enough. And then, so I just wanted to correct that because I don't want to be beat up in the comments.
No, I didn't want you to correct it so somebody would say something about someone other than me. So they I'm just kidding.
And the other thing is I just did a little light research while we were talking. And as far as we focus a lot on Caroline's Monkey. Was that that's the name of it, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't find the name Caroline associated with any of them, Dave, Peter, Martin, or Christian. So or Richard Butler even. So I looked that up too. So
Okay.
whoever, here's to her, whoever she is. But I mean, that's what I mean, all the best.
And her monkey.
Yeah.
And her monkey.
And her monkey.
Yeah.
It's probably just like Heiko said, a name that just felt good, right? It's got 3 syllables, worked perfect with the song. Could have been Sweet Caroline, went bad.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe Neil Diamond's Caroline didn't turn out for the best.
Right.
So how long did Depeche Mode play?
I think they played a good hour and I think about 40 minutes with the getting on stage during the encore.
So pretty close to 2 hours. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. And I saw an interview with like Dave and Martin at something. They had a theater of people asking them questions, and a guy goes, "Well, why you guys have so many songs? Why don't you play 40 songs?" And Dave was just kind of chuckled, and he says, "My voice can't handle that."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Even if Martin sang half the songs, he still couldn't handle that probably.
And I mean, they've been in lockdown. I mean, all these guys are coming out now and they're trying to do these tours, and it's tough when you've rested for 2 years, and
yeah.
Well, yeah, and
I think get into the grind,
Yeah,
This
well,
tour is supposed to last until like the middle of next year, so it's going to be almost a full year of
Ooh.
touring. Yeah.
Yeah.
And these guys are not spring chickens anymore.
Right.
Yeah, we know
Yeah.
how that is, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I really want to shout out to you guys for coming on here. We appreciate
Yeah,
y'all
yeah.
bringing your knowledge. Again,
Anytime.
You guys carried this
Yeah.
show, so
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
and
All right.
I'm pretty sure that the Pet Shop Boys album is going to be coming up. So if y'all are
Yeah.
I got
down.
more pictures.
we might get the
I
Rat
was-
Pack back together.
I was on the front row for that one. Pet Shop Boys.
You had wrote a Pet Shop Boys?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Good for you. All right.
Well, we'll call it here. I gave this album a 7.4. Mike gave it a 5. I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
it too loud.
Yeah.
We didn't ask the fans to rate it because with their special guest on here, I always give it my ratings.
Right.
So anyway, until next time, y'all stay safe.
That's right. Peace out and listen to the music.